Multiple areas of tropical concern across northern Australia right now. Heavy rainfall, flooding, and the potential for more systems to develop as we head towards Australia Day. That's what we need to talk about. Right now, conditions across Queensland couldn't be more varied. Up in far north Queensland, around Cairns and the Atherton tablelands, it has been hot and humid. 34 degrees with 80% humidity in some areas, the kind of heat where you're re-sweating just standing still. Mount Carbine recorded 27 degrees overnight as the minimum. That's not cooling down at all. That sticky, oppressive tropical air mass has been sitting over the region for days now. Townsville has been overcast, not quite as hot, but the humidity is still there, making everything feel uncomfortable. Bowness had a few little showers come through, good for the gardens and fruit trees, but nothing substantial. Further south around Rockhampton, they've copped more than their fair share. 185 millimetres in the past 4 days around South Gladstone. The Calliope River S finally come back from flood warning status. Sun S starting to peek through, but the ground is saturated. Any more significant rainfall and those rivers go straight back up. Meanwhile, down in Tasmania, it's a completely different story. Riverside and Launceston still bone dry. Logan City in southeast Queensland hasn't had decent rain for ages. Carcoar in New South Wales hit 35 degrees today with the breeze dying off and not a drop of rain despite the forecasts. The weather apps just aren't getting it right for a lot of areas. That contrast you're re-experiencing right now, the wet tropics versus the dry south, the humidity up north versus the heat out west, is all connected to what S happening in the Coral Sea and across the top end. And that S where we need to focus. Let S start with what S already on the ground. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji are still very much active. Would you believe it? A couple of days after making landfall on the central Queensland coast and giving Mackay a proper blow, this system is still causing problems. The low pressure centre is currently located about 150 kilometres north of Mount Isa. It's tracking northwest, which is good news because it means the showers and thunderstorms 1T persist over any single area for too long. But here is the concern. This system is dragging moisture in from the Gulf of Carpentaria. That means scattered showers and thunderstorms through the Flinders and Norman River catchments tonight and into tomorrow morning. Now, if you've been watching the news or following the Bureau of Meteorology updates, you will know that northwestern Queensland has been dealing with significant flooding since Boxing Day. 2 weeks of elevated water levels. And when you've got that much water already on the ground, even 30 to 50 millimetres of additional rainfall can push river levels straight back up to major flood status without warning. The webcam footage from around the state tells the story better than any rainfall figures. The Blackwater Reservoir crossing, there is normally a road there. You wouldn't know it right now. Completely underwater. A few days ago, you could see land cruisers driving through. Now it's a lake. That gives you an idea of just how much water is moving through central Queensland at the moment. Jenny Line in the northwest is finally starting to drop. You can see a bit more of the flood marker now compared to 24 hours ago. Low tides in the Gulf are helping drain some of the floodwaters, but it's a slow process. Jumarji still has water right across the floodway. The rivers remain swollen. Any additional rainfall is going to exacerbate an already difficult situation. The good news is the forecast models are showing this rainfall clearing out. A couple of thunderstorms this Arvo into tomorrow Arvo, then conditions easing on Friday. By the weekend, the remnants of KOJI should be well into the Northern Territory, and northwestern Queensland can finally start to dry out properly. Rainfall becomes strictly coastal from that point onwards, but here S where it gets interesting. And this is the part that needs close attention over the next couple of weeks. Out in the Coral Sea, we've got tropical low 14U. It is currently located west of New Caledonia, roughly 1,500 kilometres northeast of Rockhampton. That is a fair distance offshore. Right now, it is tracking northeast, which means by this weekend, it'll be up near Vanuatu before turning back towards New Caledonia. The Bureau of Meteorology and the international forecast models are suggesting tropical cyclone genesis becomes possible sometime after Monday, the 19th of January, potentially through to Wednesday, the 21st. New Caledonia could see a weak tropical cyclone with heavy rainfall. But for Queensland, this particular system is not expected to be a direct concern. It is too far offshore and the steering currents are keeping it away from our coastline. However, and this is important, conditions in the upper atmosphere have changed. The jet stream that normally keeps tropical systems confined to far north Queensland has weakened over eastern Australia. That KOJI was able to track so far south for this time of year. Typically, you don't see tropical cyclones outside of far north Queensland until February. KOJI was unusual. It caught some people off guard. That weakened jet stream is something to keep in mind as we monitor these developing systems. Now, let us talk about what is potentially developing closer to home. The forecast models are picking up signals for a monsoon trough or tropical low developing somewhere between the Coral Sea and the Gulf of Carpentaria between the 20th and 25th of January. That the week before Australia Day. The details are still being worked out. The models, Donti, agree on exact positioning. Some show development in the Coral Sea. Others favour the Gulf. But what they do agree on is this. Significant moisture is going to be pulled into northern and far north Queensland during that period. Heavy rainfall is likely for parts of the tropical coast. Now, before anyone starts worrying about another tropical cyclone, the current modelling doesn't support that scenario. We looking at broad monsoonal low pressure activity, maybe a rainfall depression, but not a structured tropical cyclone. The forecast models just aren't showing the conditions needed for cyclone development over northern Queensland through the remainder of January. That said, early February is showing some interesting signals in the Coral Sea, something to keep an eye on. The tropical cyclone season is far from over, and February through March is typically when Queensland sees its most significant systems. Let's turn our attention to what the remnants of KOJI are going to do next, because this is where the forecast gets complicated. After dumping rain across northwestern Queensland, the system is tracking towards the top end of the Northern Territory. By this weekend, it's expected to interact with the monsoon trough around Darwin, and that interaction is going to produce substantial rainfall. The European forecast model is showing 4-day rainfall accumulations of 600 to 700 millimetres in pockets around the Adelaide River area, out towards Bachelor and just south of Darwin. That's a massive amount of rainfall in a short period. Now, the top end can generally cope with that kind of rainfall. The catchments are designed for the wet season. 600 millimetres in a few days isn't unusual up there, but it will put several areas under flood watch, and there will likely be some localised flooding around Darwin and surrounds. Darwin itself can expect at least 100 millimetres this weekend, but the exact totals and exact locations are still not locked in. The forecast models are still working out the details. So if you're in the Darwin region, keep an eye on the Bureau of Meteorology updates over the coming days. Here's where it gets really interesting though. After this weekend, the remnants of KOJI have a choice to make, and the forecast models Donti agree on which way it is going to go. Option 1, the system tracks west into the Indian Ocean and potentially redevelops near the Kimberley region in Western Australia. That would bring heavy rainfall to the top end of WA and potentially impact the northwest coast. Option 2, the system makes a U-turn and tracks back towards Queensland via the Gulf of Carpentaria. If that happens, we're re-looking at another round of significant rainfall for northwestern Queensland and potentially the tropical coast. Areas that have already copped substantial flooding could be in for more. Right now, the steering currents favour the second option. The monsoon is strong, and a strong monsoon tends to pull systems back towards the east. But there's genuine uncertainty in the modelling, and the exact track won't become clear until the system moves through the Darwin area over the weekend. What we can say with confidence is this. Either way, there is going to be a low pressure system developing somewhere between the Gulf of Carpentaria and the Western Australian border between the 20th and 25th of January. Heavy rainfall is locked in for parts of northern Australia. We just don't know exactly where the heaviest falls will occur. In terms of tropical cyclone redevelopment, the chances aren't looking great right now. For KOJI to regenerate into a named cyclone, it would need to spend significant time over warm water with favourable atmospheric conditions. The current forecast doesn't support that scenario, but it's not impossible, so we'll continue monitoring. Looking at the broader tropical cyclone outlook for the next 10 days, chances are actually quite low across northern Australia. That might seem counterintuitive with all this activity, but it's actually typical when you've got a strong monsoon. The monsoon produces widespread rainfall threats, but the conditions that favour organised tropical cyclone development, tight pressure gradients, low wind shear, concentrated convection, those conditions tend to usually align during active monsoon phases. Sometimes monsoon troughs and monsoon lows can evolve into tropical cyclones. It's happened before, so it is definitely something to keep watching. But if you re-up in far north Queensland right now, you re-not under any specific alert for tropical cyclone development through the remainder of January. The rainfall threat, though, is very real, and that is what needs the most attention right now. For those in northwestern Queensland who've been dealing with flooding since Boxing Day, the message is this: conditions should ease over the coming days as the remnants of KOJI track into the Northern Territory. But stay alert. Monitor the Bureau of Meteorology flood warnings. And if there's any indication that the system is going to track back towards Queensland via the Gulf, be prepared for conditions to deteriorate again. If it's flooded, forget it. That is the SES message, and it applies now more than ever. The roads through northwestern Queensland are dangerous. Water levels can rise rapidly with minimal warning. If you not sure whether a crossing is safe, it isn't T. For those in far north Queensland, the focus over the next week or so is the monsoon moisture. Periods of heavy rainfall are likely, particularly towards the end of January. Check your gutters and drains. Make sure water can flow away from your property. If you in a flood-prone area, know your options. The humidity is going to be intense. Some areas are recording overnight minimums in the high 20s. That is difficult weather for everyone, particularly the elderly and those with health conditions. Stay hydrated. Limit outdoor activity during the hottest parts of the day. Check on your neighbours. For those waiting for rain in areas like Logan City, the Launceston region and parts of rural New South Wales, unfortunately this tropical moisture isn't going to help you. These systems are focused on the north. The dry conditions further south are a separate weather pattern entirely. A few people have asked about the forecast models and their accuracy. The short answer is they're getting better all the time. The Access model run by the Bureau of Meteorology, the European model, the GFS, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. For tropical systems, the European model tends to be more reliable for intensity. The GFS is better at picking up early signals but can sometimes produce unusual solutions in the long range. When the models agree, we can have high confidence in the forecast. When they disagree, as they do right now with the track of KOJI remnants, we have to present the range of possibilities and wait for more data. That is just the nature of forecasting. What we can say is this: the broad patterns are well established. Active monsoon, multiple areas of low pressure developing, significant rainfall across the tropical north. The details, exact totals, exact locations, exact timing, those will become clearer over the coming days. In terms of what to watch for, if you see the remnants of KOJI track back towards Queensland instead of out into the Indian Ocean, that S when northwestern Queensland needs to be on high alert again. And if those late January signals in the Coral Sea start to consolidate into something more organised, that could mean increased rainfall for the tropical coast. February is also worth keeping in mind. There are some early signals in the forecast modelling that suggest conditions could become more favourable for tropical cyclone development in the Coral Sea during early February. Nothing concrete yet, and long-range forecasts are notoriously unreliable for specific events. But it is cyclone season. This is when Queensland historically sees its most significant tropical impacts. Staying informed is always a good idea. Many of you remember Cyclone Tracy, Christmas 1974. Darwin was destroyed, winds over 200 kilometres per hour. That was an extreme event, the kind that shapes generations. What we're re-looking at now doesn't approach those extremes. But the principle holds: forewarned, is forearmed. Knowing what S coming gives you time to prepare. The current situation requires attention, not panic. There is significant rainfall on the way for parts of northern Australia. Flooding concerns remain elevated in some areas. Multiple systems are being monitored. But there is no imminent threat of a major tropical cyclone impact on Queensland. If you are in an affected area, keep monitoring the Bureau of Meteorology. They read the official source for warnings and watches. Local emergency services, the SES, will have the latest on road closures and flood impacts. For those in areas that haven't been directly affected by this tropical activity, conditions are going to remain varied, hot and dry in some parts, storms possible in others, the usual Australian summer pattern where the weather can change dramatically from one region to the next. The week ahead will bring more clarity on how these systems develop. By the weekend, we'll have a much better idea of where the remnants of KOJI are heading. And by early next week, the signals for that late January moisture should start to firm up. In the meantime, look after yourselves and look after each other. Check on elderly neighbours, especially in the heat. Make sure your pets and livestock have access to shade and water. And if you are in an area prone to flash flooding, have a plan for where you will go if conditions deteriorate. That is the detailed outlook for northern Queensland and the tropical north as we head towards Australia Day. Significant activity to monitor, but no cause for alarm at this stage. The weather will continue to evolve and we'll continue to track it.